He was the son of my friend. The experience we had while watching the movie transformed everything. My name is Carolyn, and I have always embodied a nurturing, caring essence. The individual who organized dinner gatherings, contributed the casserole, and recalled birthdays when others overlooked them. I am currently 61 years old, having been widowed for several years, and I reside alone in a tranquil neighborhood just outside of Portland. Life has gradually settled into a slower rhythm, as it often does when the children have grown and left home. The house now seems too spacious, and the silence, once a cherished luxury, has transformed into a constant companion, much like an old clock marking the passage of time that feels uncertain in how to occupy it. It had been several months since I last saw Brenda when she reached out that weekend. In college, we were inseparable, akin to sisters, but as time passed, life led us on different paths. Upon her informing me of her brief visit to town for a conference and her request for me to look after her son Ethan for the evening while she attended a formal dinner, I readily agreed without hesitation. I recalled Ethan as a charming young lad, perhaps around 12 the last time our paths crossed, full of energy and all knees and elbows. At the age of 24, he had recently graduated and was seemingly residing in Seattle, navigating his way through life's uncertainties, as Brenda described it. She assured me over the phone that he is very polite, somewhat reserved, yet exceptionally gracious. You will find him appealing, Carolyn. A knock resonated just after 6. As I opened the door, I was greeted by the sight of a tall, lean young man, his dark curls gently cascading into his eyes. He possessed Brenda's smile, effortless and sincere, and he reached out his hand as he greeted her. "Hi, Miss Carter. My name is Ethan. I appreciate your hospitality in allowing me to stay over this evening." I chuckled, dismissing the formalities with a wave of my hand. "Ms. Carter. Oh, certainly. That evokes a sense of being a school teacher. It's simply Carolyn, understood." He smiled as he entered, and for a brief moment, I couldn't help but observe how much he had matured. He possessed a grounded energy that some young men exude, not arrogant, merely composed. I found that enjoyable. The evening progressed with a serene grace. Prior to our gathering, I prepared lasagna and we dined at the quaint table by the window, engaging in conversation about his college experiences, his longing for home-cooked meals, and his future aspirations. His words flowed without urgency, and the depth of his listening, truly listening, made me feel acknowledged in a manner I hadn't experienced in a long while. Following dinner, I suggested we watch a classic film, something from the old-school era. I inquired, browsing through the selections displayed on the screen. "Or would you like to introduce me to whatever it is that young people are currently watching?" He offered a smile. "Let us choose something that brings a sense of comfort. I am ready for a break from rapid edits and superhero narratives for the time being." We chose The Bridges of Madison County, a timeless classic that I hadn't watched in years. I dimmed the lights and we settled onto the couch, maintaining a considerate distance between us. I draped a blanket over my legs, and he mirrored the gesture on his side, both of us enjoying tea and allowing the silence to envelop us. At a certain point in the film, I sensed it, that delicate change in the atmosphere. It was subtle, merely a gaze lingered upon for a fraction too long amidst a poignant moment. I turned to find his eyes shimmering in the subdued light, focused not on the screen, but on me. As I glanced back at him, he maintained his gaze. He inhaled gently, with a calm and measured rhythm. "Are you fond of it?" I inquired, my voice subdued. He gave a nod. "I do." I was taken by surprise, but indeed, it is beautiful. albeit somewhat melancholic. Life can encompass both, I responded. I did not intend for it to be anything beyond a mere observation about the film, yet the significance of my words lingered in the air between us. I am uncertain as to why I found myself continually observing him. Perhaps it was the wine, perhaps it was the solitude, perhaps it was something altogether different, an unusual and unforeseen moment of connection between two individuals who were not meant to intertwine. I adjusted my position, and the blanket grazed his leg. He remained in place. He offered a subtle smile and remarked, "You remind me of my mother, but not quite. You exhibit a gentler, more subdued presence." I chuckled softly. "More gentle? Could that be considered a compliment?" "Indeed," he remarked. "Your presence is truly remarkable. It is quite pleasant." Once more, it was present, the subtle, low hum, drawing us imperceptibly nearer without a single movement from either of us. I gazed at him for a moment longer than was perhaps appropriate. His hand lingered on the couch cushion, near, uncomfortably near. The warmth emanating from his skin was inviting, awakening something within me that had long been dormant, something I had unknowingly confined to the depths of my being. I did not make any physical contact with him. He refrained from making any physical contact with me. In that moment, there was an undeniable energy, a sense of reverence and authenticity, an unvoiced sentiment, yet completely grasped. As the credits came to an end, I took my time before illuminating the room once more. He did not rise immediately. We remained seated, illuminated by the screen's glow, both conscious that a change had occurred between us. Softly, effortlessly. I was completely unaware of what was about to unfold. However, I was aware that everything had transformed. I hardly slept that night. Once Ethan retreated to the guest room and I to my own, I found myself lying in bed, gazing at the ceiling, revisiting the evening as if it were an old film reel. The film showcased the subtlety of his voice, which softened during pivotal moments, highlighting his attentiveness as he listened to me. That gaze, that prolonged, silent gaze, it had revealed something within me, a section I was unaware was still in existence. The morning light gently streamed through the curtains, enveloping the room in a soft, warm glow. I rose from my slumber, donned my robe, and made my way to the kitchen to brew a fresh pot of coffee. The house was enveloped in silence, a stillness that invites deep contemplation. I made an effort to let it go. The evening was simply tranquil, nothing further. I must have been acting rather foolishly, without a doubt. He was the son of Brenda, a visitor, significantly younger. Nevertheless, as I poured coffee into 2 mugs, the sound of his door opening reached my ears. He emerged moments later, his shirt creased, hair disheveled from slumber, and barefoot. "Good morning," he remarked. His voice retained a hint of slumber. "Good morning," I responded with a smile as I offered him a cup. "I trust you had a restful night." "I have done so. Surprisingly, I feel better than I have in weeks." He rested against the counter, cradling the mug with both hands, his gaze locking onto mine once more. The serene, measured look. Once more, an unspoken connection lingered between us. After a brief pause, he suggested, "If you're not too busy today, perhaps we could take a walk or do something similar. If you are willing to proceed." I found the idea to be quite surprising. In the most gracious manner, "That sounds delightful," I remarked. A quaint path lies nearby, meandering through trees alongside a gentle creek. I frequently walked it prior to the onset of the rainy season. After an hour, we strolled side by side along that trail. The earth retained a slight moisture, yet the atmosphere was invigorating and pure. The aroma of pine mingled with the delicate sweetness of blooming wildflowers filled the air. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on both trivial matters and profound topics. Literature, melodies, his doubts regarding post-college life, my garden, the subtle pain that accompanies the passage of time. He suddenly remarked that people often underestimate the comfort of simply being with someone, without expectations or an agenda, simply the presence of another person who is willing to listen. I paused in my stride and turned my gaze toward him. I believe you are correct. Many individuals hurry through tasks, consistently strategizing their next step. Yet, there are moments when the silence holds the greatest significance. He gazed at me then, not merely at my face, but deep within my being. I experienced it. It was as if he could perceive every wrinkle, every memory hidden within my eyes, and yet he still chose to remain right there. Upon returning to the house, we settled onto the back patio, the sun gently warming our shoulders. He removed his shoes, reclined in the chair, and shut his eyes. I observed him closely. There was an undeniable purity in the manner he allowed himself to simply exist. Unfiltered, unpretentious. It's Ethan in that instant. Wholly authentic. I prepared lunch, a simple yet satisfying combination of grilled cheese and tomato soup. This time, we dined in the living room, our legs tucked beneath us, reminiscent of old friends enjoying a leisurely Sunday. The comfort we shared had deepened, resembling something both familiar and distinctly novel. At one moment, I found myself genuinely laughing at one of his stories, the kind of laughter that brought tears to my eyes. He gazed at me with a warmth that almost took my breath away. "You possess a truly beautiful laugh," he remarked softly. I was at a loss for words. After such a long time, compliments felt unfamiliar, not due to a lack of appreciation, but because I had not allowed myself to accept them. I glanced downward, a warm flush rising to my neck. "It is merely laughter," I muttered softly, delicately sweeping away non-existent lint from my sleeve. "No, it's not," he stated. "It is you. It is sincere." That evening, he graciously extended his assistance with the dishes. We positioned ourselves at the sink, side by side. He completed the washing, while I took care of the drying. Effortless and harmonious collaboration. The silence was strikingly intimate, punctuated solely by the sound of running water and the occasional clink of a plate. As we completed our task, his hand lightly grazed mine, if only for an instant, yet neither of us withdrew. The warmth of his skin enveloped me, while the steadiness of his presence grounded my thoughts. My heart raced with a newfound rhythm, and for the first time in what felt like ages, it was not driven by fear. The feeling was one of eager anticipation. As he readied himself to return to the guest room, he halted momentarily in the hallway. As I was switching off the lights in the living room, I sensed his gaze upon me. "Thank you," he expressed. "What is the purpose?" "For allowing me the opportunity to be here with you." I nodded, feeling uncertain about how to respond. The words lingered heavily in my chest, unvoiced. "Good night, Carolyn," he murmured gently. "Wishing you a restful night, Ethan." In an instant, he vanished down the corridor. However, there was nothing in this that conveyed a sense of closure. It seemed to mark the onset of an experience that was still beyond my comprehension. I awoke to a gentle flutter in my chest, not quite anxiety, but rather something different, a subtle, anxious warmth. I advanced with caution, each movement measured, as though the stillness of the home contained something delicate that could break with the slightest misstep. I styled my hair, applied a touch of blush to enhance my complexion, and selected a gentle blue sweater that had been tucked away for years. It was not intended for anyone. That is what I conveyed to myself, exclusively for my enjoyment. Upon entering the kitchen, I found Ethan already present, sleeves rolled up, barefoot once more, preparing eggs. "Good morning," he said, offering me that well-known youthful smile. I decided it was my opportunity to take on the cooking duties. I rested against the doorframe, observing him intently. "It seems you have quite the knack for surprises." He chuckled softly, arranging the eggs alongside the toast and presenting them with a sense of accomplishment. We dined together, our proximity heightened from the previous day, knees gently touching beneath the table, neither of us retreating. The atmosphere surrounding us was understated, yet it thrummed with an unarticulated tension. I was not merely imagining it, I was aware of that now. We dedicated the majority of the day to indoor activities. The sky had become overcast, with gentle rain pattering against the windows. We engaged in reading, exchanged music, and recounted cherished tales. During our conversation, I recounted a trip to Paris I had taken in my 30s, and he engaged with questions that suggested he truly valued the story. "I've never experienced a place quite like that," he remarked, resting his chin in his hand as he absorbed the conversation. "Your description brings it to life in my mind's eye. I advised you to leave." Experiencing the world through your own perspective is truly unique. "I somewhat sense that I am," he responded, his gaze resting on me for just a moment longer than necessary. By late afternoon, the rain had subsided. We relocated to the living room once more and settled in with another film, opting for something more lighthearted this time. However, we positioned ourselves nearer. The respectful distance that once existed had vanished. His arm lingered on the back of the couch behind me, hovering just shy of contact, yet unmistakably close. At one moment, he presented the blanket to me effortlessly, tucking it over my legs as if it were an instinctive gesture. Midway through the film, I sensed a subtle shift from him, his fingers brushing against the side of my hand that lay on the cushion. Neither a grasp nor an extension, merely a gentle touch, a test. I remained steadfast. I allowed it to remain in that position. His pinky intertwined with mine, a subtle gesture. Yet, in that instant, it seemed vast. The silence deepened, not uncomfortable, merely electric. "I hope this doesn't feel strange," he said softly, almost a whisper. "Indeed," I responded, maintaining a soft tone. "However, this is not negative." He turned to face me, the light from the screen creating gentle shadows on his features. "There's an inexplicable sense that our connection extends beyond the mere span of a weekend. I mentioned that you are familiar with me. That is not exactly equivalent." He declined, stating, "No, it is not. However, this sensation feels authentic." I was at a loss for words in response to that. I was only aware of the sensation, the warmth residing in my chest, my body inclined toward his, uninvited. The aspect of my being that had remained dormant for an extended period is now gently awakening. He gently lifted his hand and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. I stood still, not from fear, but from the heaviness of it all. The gentle affection, the way he gazed at me as if I were something fragile and exquisite, rather than merely a friend of someone's mother. He remarked, "You are not what I anticipated." "What were your expectations?" "I'm not sure," he replied with a smile. "Perhaps someone with more experience." "And what about you? You exude a sense of timelessness." I chuckled gently. "That's an eloquent expression of my relative youth." He shook his head and replied, "No, age is not the determining factor. It is simply you." In that instant, the outside world appeared to vanish completely. The rainfall, the breeze, the guidelines and justifications. His hand took mine gently, deliberately, not concealed beneath a blanket or touched by mere chance. Merely maintained, clearly. We remained in that position for the duration of the film. Silence. Linked. Later that evening, I escorted him to the guest room once more. However, the pause in the hallway extended beyond its usual duration this time. We remained in silence, gazing at one another. There is no urgency, no plans in place. I extended my hand, gently placing it against his cheek. I expressed my gratitude, saying thank you. "What is the purpose?" he inquired. "For the reminder of my presence." His gaze softened as he leaned in slightly, allowing me to sense his breath. However, we did not share a kiss. There was no necessity for that. At times, the most profound moments are those that halt just shy of crossing the threshold. He softly uttered goodnight once more, and this time there was a distinct nuance in his tone, a matter of reverence. I observed him as he gently closed the door behind him, my heart a mix of fullness and trepidation, contemplating what the morrow might hold. As dawn approached the following morning, I rose early, prior to the sun's ascent above the trees that stood behind the house. The air hung in a tranquil silence, a stillness that evoked both serenity and apprehension, reminiscent of standing on the brink of an impending moment, uncertain yet aware of its inevitability. Wrapped in a cozy blanket, I settled onto the porch with a warm cup of coffee, taking a moment to gather my thoughts. What began as a straightforward favor for an old friend had transformed into something I found difficult to define. What I realized was that a transformation had occurred within me. I experienced a sense of awakening that I hadn't felt in years, not only emotionally, but also soulfully. I was once more attentive to all details, regarding the movement of light, to the manner in which words have arrived, to the way I felt when someone regarded me not as a woman beyond her prime, but as a woman who still held significance. Ethan joined me shortly thereafter, barefoot once more, a sweatshirt draped over his frame, his hair tousled from sleep. He took a seat beside me uninvited, positioned closely, as if it were the most ordinary occurrence imaginable. There was a period of silence between us. We observed the light as it gracefully transitioned through the trees. Ultimately, he remarked, this weekend was not intended to unfold in this manner. I glanced at him, uncertain of his meaning. His voice carried a gentle quality, yet it was unwavering in its assurance. I arrived with the intention of simply resting for the evening. Please be courteous. Pass the time. I was not anticipating your presence. I was not prepared to experience this sensation. Extracted. I nodded in agreement, taking my time to process the moment. I did not either. He extended his hand and grasped mine. I understand the appearance of this situation. I understand how it may come across. I am not gullible. Our gazes locked. I am not naive. I have experienced enough to recognize authenticity, even when it comes as a surprise. He offered a gentle smile. Isn't it true that the focus isn't on what comes next? No, I stated. This concerns the essence of what this is, the impact it has had on us. We lingered for an extended moment, simply clasping hands, allowing the silence to unfold. Ultimately, I prepared breakfast once more, featuring scrambled eggs and toast. a straightforward and stabilizing element. He offered assistance unprompted. We navigated each other's presence as if we had been practicing this for years. Subsequently, Brenda made a phone call. She was concluding her conference and would be arriving in the afternoon. The call served as an unwelcome reminder that this moment was merely borrowed time. Though we didn't discuss it, the sentiment was mutual. He packed his belongings with a measured pace, neither rushed nor sluggish, merely contemplative, deliberate. As his bag rested by the door and we stood there facing one another once more, an unfamiliar knot began to tighten in my chest. No sadness, no regrets. The pain of allowing something beautiful to exist as it truly is. Cease entirely. No less than that. He approached with confidence, and this time there was no doubt. His arms encircled me softly, and I allowed myself to lean into him. I sensed his heartbeat, consistent and comforting, and I allowed mine to synchronize with it. "I'm uncertain about the significance of this weekend," he murmured, "but it will remain etched in my memory." "I will not either," I stated. He withdrew a bit, and for the first time, kissed me, not with haste or longing, but with tenderness. Profound, enduring attention. A kiss that conveyed gratitude, that acknowledged presence, that signified importance. Suddenly, the door swung open. Before we even laid eyes on her, Brenda's voice rang out, "I trust I haven't arrived prematurely." I quickly stepped back, adjusting my sweater and dabbing at my eyes. Ethan remained calm. He offered me a final glance, serene and collected, before proceeding to greet his mother. She engaged in conversation with me for a few minutes, praised the coziness of the house, and expressed her gratitude once more for looking after him. She remained unaware of the events that had unfolded over the past 2 days, and perhaps it was for the best. As they departed, Ethan glanced back at the final moment, locking eyes with me from the driveway. He acknowledged me with a nod, neither a wave nor a farewell. A subtle nod, perhaps a promise, or merely an acknowledgement of a shared understanding that required no further explanation from either of us. As the car vanished down the road, I remained in the doorway, my heart gently pulsing in my chest, enveloped in a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. Neither romance nor regret, but rather presence and stillness. A subtle awareness that, at times, the most surprising individuals reveal to us the aspects of ourselves we may have overlooked. At times, that is all that is needed, more than sufficient.